Well, hi guys. For this episode's podcast feature, I've managed to get to come and talk to somebody that always gives me his time at rallies whenever I see him. And it turns out we've probably got a hell of a lot in common, although you are more senior than me. And I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Ian Keezer, G3ROO. Hi Ian.
Hello there. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, well, as I say, you always give me plenty of time at the rallies, even if I haven't got an orange jacket on. So I've come down to see you. We're sitting in one of your workshops, and, you know, you've done a lot in the hobby. I know that you showed me what you used to do with Kango Products, which is interesting.
Oh, yes. Well, that was all because back in, I should have looked up the year actually, but it was about 82. I used to write a lot of articles for the Shortwave magazine, and the editor once put half-page advert in, and it said Kango Electronics, stand by for their next project, and that was a VFO for 5 megs, and it was very, very stable. And it just so happened that I got enough to make about 150 kits. So I made them all up and sold them, and that was the start of Kango Products.
Right. So that is, you were almost forced into Kango Products by the editor then.
Yes, it was. And I had a lovely job because I could do a lot of my work at work. And then in 1984, a couple of years after the birth of Kango Electronics, then I was taken ill and had to leave work. And funny part of my life, I lost my balance basically, and I couldn't walk. I had to learn to walk again, and I couldn't do all the work. It had taken off. I was making lots of different kits. And I took on, as a partner, my ex-diving buddy. And so that's when we changed the name to Kango Products. But it wasn't the birth of the company. The birth of the company was 2 or 3 years prior to that. But still going strong.
It's interesting how lots of these things you've been involved with lots of things. I mean, you just mentioned, and I wouldn't have known, you did diving.
Oh yes, an instructor there. It was a lovely sport, and could earn a bit of money as well, working in the dock, taking wires off props on the ferries and various underwater jobs you had to do, and it was good money. So I was rebuilding the house at the time, or still rebuilding it, and so every penny was needed. Yeah.
So and then there's one other thing we mentioned before we get into electronics, because I mean, you know, it's nice that people understand sort of some of the things we come from. Both you and I flew gliders, but you were much better at it than me.
Well, no, only just stuck with it a bit longer than you. It's always difficult. I mean, the first 2 years of gliding life is you tend to be a dog's body. You only get to fly when there's an instructor available. But no, I stuck with it. And the airfield is only a mile away that I did all my training at. And yes, wonderful hobby. I loved it. Second to radio, but definitely a good experience.
Yeah. So, in fairness, I mean, lovely. Your airfield's only about a mile away. I mean, I was travelling 40 odd miles to get to the one I was flying.
Well, I was doing that for Kendley, of course, when I was up at Kendley, twice a week.
All right.
Duty instructor.
But you lived up in the sort of same part of the world I live, or fairly close when you were growing up, and it was interesting. You talked about going up to Lisle Street and Tottenham Court Road and all those places, in Edgware Road, all the electronics.
Right from a young lad. I heard Morse when I was 8 on the home radio. They were the beacons down the bottom end of the long wave. And so I sat there decoding them from a copy of the Morse code that Dad found for me. and decoded those and learnt Morse. I could read Morse 8-10 words a minute at that time. There were quite a lot of slow Morse activity on the bands then. The higher speeds that we have now are due to electronic keyers, but back then they were straight keys, and 8, 10, 12 words a minute were very, very common. So that's I was soon progressed up when I suppose really I had my first CW contact when I was 13, Pirate of course.
Oh, as if, come on.
Built a transmitter and had to have a QSO. But then there you are, that's all part of growing up with the hobby, yeah.
Yeah, so say great fun, and the thing is, what impresses me is that you are passionate about radio, and you know I've seen you at lots of rallies, and we've been lucky today to come down and see you at your home location. You got an ideal location. We're not going to say where it is totally, but you got a nice
quiet location.
Really
Relatively quiet.
Yeah, I mean, I drove down this road and I wasn't even sure if it was a road.
That's Kent for you. That's Kent. We're a mass of small lanes.
Yeah. Well, I was actually born in Kent, so...
Whereabouts?
I was born in Folkestone Hospital.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, just down the road.
Yeah. Yeah, we moved away when I was about 13.
Yeah.
But, I lived in the area for quite a while. So,
Good age.
Good age, yeah. Yeah. You have an interest in parachuting these Parasets and things like that, don't you?
Yeah, the Paraset, yes.
Yeah.
Generally SpyRadios, B2, Parasets, lot of Polish spy transceivers, and also military. I'm downsizing my military collection because it's just so heavy, and I can't pick it up. So yes, around you. Well, you can't really see it on the camera, can you? But they can see behind. There's a good mix.
Yeah, I can tell you were into the military. I saw what you had at the rally, the last rally we were both at. There was a lot of military stuff on the table, so I thought, Ian's...
There was even more. Sold most of it in the car park waiting to get in.
Oh, you're going to upset the organisers now, aren't you?
Well, they should have been there earlier. Well, you were.
Yeah. But it just goes to show, if you're at a rally early... that
the rally starts.
The rally starts. Yeah, why wouldn't you sell it out the back of your car if you're there? But now going back to the spy sets, you've shown me some interesting spy sets today. An original Paraset and then a
B2.
A B2, but you've also shown me a replica of a Paraset that you've. People have got round to producing just for the fun of it.
Oh yes, and trying to get it as accurate as possible. Of course, you'll never fox them completely, but the idea is to think people to sort of think, oh, he's got a Paraset. No, we haven't, but we like to think we have. But they all work, and keeping them working is a bit of a thing. But all the sets in here have been working, if they're not working now, but. Luckily, you can, once you've had them open and you've found the fault, usually that fault has reoccurred. So you know what it is anyway before you even open the set up, or you've got a good idea. They're very simple as well. They're very simple designs. One valve transmitter, I mean, it's very simple.
Yeah, but it was simple for a reason.
Reliability.
Yeah, it had to be.
Yeah, that's right. And easily repaired in the field. I mean, the Paraset is a damn good example. I mean, you've got two valves, which are metal case, so they're rugged. Everything in there is point-to-point wiring, supported on the component or the pins of the valve bases and things like that. There's no tag strips as such. So, yes, it's a very rugged design that's easily repaired.
Yeah. Well, it would have to be easily repaired in the field with minimal equipment, I assume.
Otherwise, you've got to wait until you've got to get a message back to England to say send me another one, or they do repairs, and I think there are a lot more repairs done than it was first imagined.
Yeah, and electronics does survive. I mean, you were saying today the if you're going to repair one or some of the older, more valve equipment, you know, changing the capacitors is a must, isn't it? They go leaky.
Yeah, and it happens in modern sets. Capacitors, the little electrolytics in there, they dry out very easily. Of course, there's extra heat in the valve sets, which means that they dry out quicker. But pretty good. I mean, I just did an AR88. It was over a year ago. And I only had to change about half of the capacitors. When you actually measured them, they were fine. So that's not really bad for a 70-year-old piece of kit. Hang on, 70 years, I'm near 80.
Yeah. Well, they made them. They made them to last in them days.
Well, they were all sensible components. I mean, capacitor with rolled up paper with an aluminium foil.
Yeah.
Nothing really to go wrong in them. When you've got electrolytes that, to leaking out of cans, then of course you have got a potential leakage and a failure of components.
Yeah. So it's an interesting hobby. Now, I'm going to jump around a little bit. When we first arrived, we were chatting to you and we were in your shack, and I mentioned VHF, and you went, "Yeah, I've just got back into this." But it's nice to know that you do a lot of things, and you mentioned.
There's so much fun to be had out there on sideband and CW on 2 meters, and everyone sits on channels chatting to their mates. Well, that's fine, don't mind that. But what really gets me is that they've deserted the other modes down the bottom of the band where there's a lot of fun to be had. Hell of a lot of fun. Sideband on 2. I've 2 days in succession, flat 2 meter band, talking to a friend down in Chepstow. That's 200 miles from here, 200 something miles. He was running 2 watts.
Well, that just goes to show that it can be done.
Yeah, 2 watts, 5-element Yagi he used.
Yeah. Now I often get told, there's no activity on 2 meters. Nobody's using it but the pieces. Now I live in South London. I would guarantee, if you and I both lived in South London, and I called you on the calling frequency, and we forgot, and let's be honest, to move off the calling frequency, we'd have about 2 overs, and the world and his wife would be screaming at us to get off the frequency.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, that's it. That's why we have to call it a calling frequency, isn't it? I mean, we should move out of politeness.
We should, but what I'm suggesting is there are loads of people listening. But they won't operate.
Oh, this happens on HF all the time, especially with the higher bands. The other day, 2 of us here, Nigel, M0NDE and myself, and we just went up to see what 10 was doing, and there was no activity on 10 except for some FT8. So there was obviously, band was lively, or potentially lively. I put out a CQ on the key, and had a reply come back immediately. When we finished that contact, there were 4 signals visible on the band scope on the key.
There you go.
Because if you don't, its point is just listening on the band, because everyone else is just listening. But you start to make some noise, other people see and say, "Oh, the band is active," and come on. So for goodness sake, when you get on a band, if it's dead, always call CQ to make some activity, and you'll be surprised what comes back.
Yeah, and if you're the one calling CQ, you could be the one with a mega pile-up.
Yes, that's right. Yes, it could happen.
Yeah.
I mean, especially W was open, it was wide open, Thursday, I think it was, morning, and about 11 o'clock. And I had 8 or 10 QSOs, just rubber stamps, but, it was fun, nice to have 10 open.
Yeah.
And that's a wonderful band.
Yeah. So I haven't done much on 10 myself. Have done it.
Worth trying.
Yeah, I'm more of a VHF band. I'll be honest with you. But
It is VHF.
yeah, he is.
30
Yeah,
megahertz.
yeah, pretty much. But you were saying your favourite mode of operation. Your favourite band and your favourite mode of operation, and I've only ever had one contact on that band, and the guy was like 5 miles up the road.
Yeah,
So,
160 metres.
yeah.
Oh no, 160. It's you've got to have real estate. I'm very fortunate. Got this place dirt cheap when in the 1970, 72. It was a derelict. We rebuilt it, my wife and I, and my dad.
Yeah.
And got a lovely house with 2 acres of land, and only 3 houses now in close proximity, and good neighbours, so I can put up my towers, and I've got 2 80-foot towers and 2 a 30 and a 40 now. Taken one down, don't need it, and wire antennas now. I've taken all the beams. I've realised the work involved in using beams. Every year you've got to rebuild your beams, you've got to service all your rotators. I have great fun with wire antennas, so why bother?
Why? Yeah, you should say why. As I say, I'm done a lot more QRP operating on HF when I do operate, and I used to say to people, I get more fun going out doing 3 contacts on a Sunday afternoon on QRP than 30 QRO.
Yeah.
And this is me throwing a hand grenade in the room. People say to me, QRP's like, there's no time for QRP.
Yes, yeah.
No time for QRP. No. And I look them straight in the face, I say, QRO is like fishing in a pond with dynamite. You throw the dynamite in, you kill all the fish and you get them. There's no skill.
I think if people's actually sat down and thought about it, we've got to go from 10 watts to 100 watts is only 2 S points, if you look at it like that. So how many times have you said, oh, you're 5 and 9 plus 30, well, it's okay. So he wound his power down by a factor of 10 and it'd be 5 and 9 plus 20, I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned once to a guy who was running a big contest station, I said, you guys never bother to talk to me when I'm QRP. I usually leave it till the back end of the contest before I call and give some points away. And he said, Martin, we hear you. He said, but when we got somebody running a kilowatt in a foreign country or somebody running legal power in the UK from 400 watts, he said, they're so loud, we've got to get rid of them. Because we work them first to get rid of them. But the trouble is, the next one comes along, and by the time we get round to we would work you got fed up and moved off somewhere else. Yeah. So, yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, it's a big problem. I think getting back to 2 meters.
Yeah.
I'm not. I've had a demonstration of FT8, for instance, or any of these modes, but it would definitely down here. We've perhaps got 20 or 30 VHF ammeters on within 30 miles.
Yeah. And
we've got 10 modes, so there's 2 people per mode. So you're always talking to the same person if you're... It's even on the repeater now. The repeaters, there's about 6 of us that are in regular use of the repeater. People are listening.
Mm.
We know they're listening because they come up with comments down club.
Yeah.
But, they won't call in.
Well, that's the real shame of our hobby at the moment, is that it's not as active as it doesn't appear to be. Let's use the word appear. It doesn't appear to be as active as it actually is. And if people were to call, then I think you'd have some great time. I mean, there was a period about 6 weeks ago. There was a thing on 145 Alive. Mainly FM on 2 meters, but there were other bits of 2 meters going on.
I came on.
Yeah, you were on. And there were lots of contacts. I went out the week after, and I worked somebody 40 miles away, running 2.5 watts. He was on a handheld, coming back to me. Now, all right, I had my little log periodic on a pole with about 10 foot, and I ran 2.5 watts. He was over the moon because I've worked him. And so there are people out there, and this we come back to. If you don't call, they don't know you're there.
No one knows you're there. That's right. That's right, Martin.
Yeah. So, great. It's great to come down and see you. It was great to look at your Parasets and your SpySets. Really enjoyed that. It's always great to see you at the show. What's your plans going forward? What are you up to now? Because as much as I've not been around you long, I know you're a very busy person and you ain't going to stop.
No, I don't want to.
No,
but
no.
I'm pushing 80 now, and life is slowing down. Definitely, I can't do what I did last year, even. But no, my interests have changed a bit this year. Top band has not held the fascination, but I've got 285 contracts not confirmed because I don't want that. I've worked the station. I know I've worked the station, so that's all I need.
Yeah.
But I have 285 countries on top band, and now to find a new country is just about impossible. And so my interest is sort of waning a bit there. It's going back towards CW on QRP. Been on QRP quite a bit. Down here, having got rid of a lot of the big stuff, I've now got a bit more room that I can actually operate. Yes, I would like to get on some of the military gear. I've already got my standard set for QRP and spy operating, basically, is the 48/1. Very rare transmitter that.
Right.
Looks like the B2 transmitter, because it is, but they modified it for the Jedburgh group, and they put a Morse key on the front panel and a protection over the meter, and and it was run by a wound up generator. You see that square box there?
Yeah.
A windy handle, so one person could crank the handle, the other person operate the set. And I'd like to get that. I've tried to find the tripod for that. It was quite a simple tripod, but I'd like to find the tripod and actually go on the air using a wind up. I'm sure I can find someone to wind the handle.
I'm sure you would. I'm sure you would. And let's put this one out because I know the VMARS boys listen to us as well. If anybody's got a tripod, or if you had the plans for it, you could get one manufactured.
Oh yes. Oh, it's simple tripod, very simple by the look of the picture. So yes, if there's anyone out there, Ian's interested.
there you go. And I assume that apart from operating, you're still going to have the soldering on, aren't you?
Yeah, unfortunately, I've lost sight in my right eye.
Oh.
So now soldering is very difficult. I daren't touch printed circuit boards. I can stab around and make a reasonable joint. And I've got a friend that if I do have to do some real fine work, he comes round and does the fine work for me.
Yeah.
And that's a hell of a disappointment, losing the eye.
Yeah. Well, you carry it well, because I wouldn't have known. I've been with you for about an hour or more now, and I wouldn't have known that you had lost sight in one of your eyes.
It's not totally gone, but it's fragmented.
Yeah.
I can't even read the top line of the optician's thing. It's that bad.
Oh dear.
But it's better to have something than a shadowy thing than nothing at all.
Yeah. So, at the start of our conversation, before we started recording, we talked about work, and I was talking about working for Philips in the television factory, and you worked on not at the same place, but
only half a mile away.
Only half a mile away. But I was saying that they had fault finders, and I was a repair guy, and they said to me, "Mine changed that capacitor, and I changed that capacitor, or mine remove that wire." That sort of thing. So you're now in the fault finder stage, and I'd have to be, or
Yeah,
wherever
that's
you get
right.
round.
Yeah, it's a big circle.
Big circle, we got full circle. So, yeah, it's always positive. Listen, I thoroughly enjoyed chatting to you. I know that our listeners will thoroughly enjoy this. If somebody wanted to get in touch with you, email or...
QTHR on QRZ.com.
That's what I thought you'd say, yeah.
Yeah, there's got that. No.
Check in out on QRZ. Ian's course on his G3ROO. And, guys, and I'm going to stitch you up here, Ian. If you're at a rally, for God's sake, go and talk to Ian. He's a lovely guy. And you've always given me your time. Even if I haven't had an orange shirt on, you've always been...
I try to get interest. We did a lot of Morse training the last few years. We're just thinking about starting again now. No, we've got to put something back into the hobby. If you're going to enjoy your hobby, it's worth putting something back into it, and that in itself is very rewarding.
Yeah, and I've just, as we're closing out, I've just realised there's one other thing you and I got in common. We're both members of the GQRP club.
Oh, right, yes. Well, I'm 395, so that's how long I've been in it.
Yeah. Mine's in the 2000s. From what I remember, I can't remember the exact number. I think there's a 2 and there's a 4 and a 5 in there somewhere.
That was when I first joined with George Stobbs. George and I hit it off. We used to go over to America to all the rallies over there. Had wonderful time with poor old George. Yeah. He's left us now, and... No doubt be joining him soon.
No, don't say that. I met George once when we were starting the podcast. I met him once at one of the conventions and had a quick chat with him on the floor, and he was a nice guy. Really
Lovely chap.
Lovely. I'd like to thank you very much, Ian, for inviting us down.
Well, thanks for coming, Martin.
It's been a real pleasure
meeting you, and
yeah,
it's been great.
And it's given us something else to chat about. We're at rallies, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, what are you up to? So, listen, thank you very much for your time. I'm sure our listeners are going to get a lot from this interview.
Oh, well, hope it's interesting.
Of course, it's always interesting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Martin.